All right, so we've covered all the basic OO or object-oriented functionality in JavaScript, things like constructors and the class keyword and using, what else did we see? Static methods, static properties, super, inheritance with extends. Now we'll take a look at some of the newer features that have been added in recent years that have to do with object-oriented programming. And the first thing we'll look at are getters and setters. JavaScript provides a syntax to write special methods that we'll call getters and setters that allow us to define a particular way to retrieve or update the values of specific object properties. And we'll start with getters. Getters allow us to write a special function. It starts with the word get or the keyword get, and then a space, and then our method name. And this method will be used to retrieve the value of an object's property. And we'll be able to treat it as a property. We don't actually call it as a function with parentheses. If you look down here, I'm writing circle.diameter. And this is going to be treated as if there was a property called diameter. There's not actually a property, right? It's technically a method called diameter, but we prefix it with the get keyword, and it helps us, in the world of JavaScript, define something that looks and feels like a property, but it's actually doing some logic behind the scenes. So this example is of a circle class. Now, more geometry, I'm sorry, but a circle has a radius, right? From its middle point, the center point, out to the edge of its perimeter, that's a distance. And the diameter is very simple to derive from that. It's simply the radius times 2. So we don't really need to make a separate property for diameter because diameter is just going to be derived every time from radius. The example I'll show, like if we wrote this class, but I didn't have this getter, I could do something like this dot diameter, and I'll talk about these underscores in a moment, but this dot underscore diameter equals radius times 2. I could do something like that, make a new circle, const c equals new circle. It wants a radius, let's say the radius is 4. If I look at the c dot radius, it's 4. C dot diameter, it's 8. But now, of course, if I change the radius to be 10, my diameter is still 8. So I'm going to have to go and update that diameter myself, which doesn't really make sense because the diameter is based always on the radius. It's literally just the radius times 2. The diameter is, I don't know what the right geometric terms are, but it's the widest line across a circle. That's a terrible way of putting it, but it's a radius times 2. Let's leave it at that. So instead of this syntax, I could define a method called, get diameter, and it will simply return this dot underscore radius times 2. And that works fine as well. If I make a new circle, I call circle.get diameter, I'm going to get 8 if my radius is 4. If I update the radius to be 10 and I call get diameter, I'll get 20. But I am calling this as a method. If I instead use the getter syntax, so I use the word get followed by a property name like diameter, followed by parens, this is going to act now as if it were a property. So I'll make a new circle, same thing, and I can access c.diameter and treat it like a property. If I call it with parens, I'm going to get an error telling me that's not a function. But behind the scenes, this function is actually running. So I might have more complex logic in here too. But the point of a getter is to act like a property, but have function logic behind it. And this can be super useful. It didn't exist in JavaScript for a long time, but other programming languages support this sort of syntax. It allows me to define what looks like a property, but runs logic behind the scenes, and it's especially useful when you have properties that are derived based off of other values. Like radius, we're using that to derive diameter. As far as this underscore here, this doesn't mean anything to JavaScript itself. This is a way, in the past at least, that we would use as developers to indicate to other developers, don't change this. This is not meant to be accessed from outside of the class. So everything I was doing over here, like making a new circle and then setting the radius to be something different, that underscore is kind of supposed to indicate, please don't do that. And instead, maybe there is no way of changing the radius, or we'll see in the next video an option that we could have to set the radius. It's purely a stylistic thing. JavaScript doesn't care at all. And soon we'll see that there is a better way to indicate something as private with a newer feature that is a really useful one called private fields, but we're not there yet. So that's the idea of a getter. I mean, I could define anything I want here. Get, I could even do this, get radius, and then I'll return this dot underscore radius. And the idea here is that I don't want you to be accessing underscore radius directly, so please use this instead. And I'll be able to make a new circle once again, and now I can call c.radius. It just gives me the underlying value of underscore radius. But the whole idea of that underscore is that we don't want developers doing this. This is supposed to be private or internal to the instances of this class. So it's all style and convention, but what's important in this video is understanding this get syntax. Using this get keyword in front of a method, whatever that method is named, like diameter, or radius, or color, or age, or whatever we want, username, will define what acts like a property, but runs this function behind the scenes to retrieve a value.